AM 1380, The Biz, the Wall Street Business Network.
Are you one of the 9 million Floridians living in a community managed by a property manager or HOA? If you've ever wondered what your rights are as a resident or what your role is as a volunteer board member, you've come to the right place. Welcome to the Condo Coaches, your resource for when your gated community starts to feel more like you're stuck behind bars, or when that guy next door decides that a hot pink Chevy on cinder blocks really sets the tone for the neighborhood. The Condo Coaches is brought to you by lmfunding.com. Find the Condo Coaches online at thecondocoaches.com. And now your host, Johnny Torres.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. As always, the Condo Coaches radio show coming to you from anywhere, everywhere you may be listening across the state of Florida. For those of you listening on terrestrial radio, and then, of course, worldwide at thecondocoaches.com. You can also catch our show live on Facebook at facebook.com/thecondocoaches, and you can catch every episode on our YouTube channel. So just go over to YouTube, and when you're done watching those cat videos, search for the Condo Coaches, and you'll find all 31 episodes. We're at 32 episodes, Dean.
That's awesome.
So joining me as always, you heard him right there, head coach Dean Akers. How are you, sir?
Johnny, I'm doing awesome. Like you say, we're hitting the 32 episode mark, and we're real.
Yeah.
It's real.
It's
now.
incredibly exciting. We're having real impact. We are doing some incredible work out there. I mean, your team that you've assembled, that continues to grow every single day is just doing some amazing work, and we love it. I mean, it's what fuels this show week after week is the impact that we get to have on your community, on the residents, on the board members across the state of Florida. And today we have a very interesting topic, and as I've said before, you would think the broader topics, are the more popular ones, right? Because they kind of apply to anyone. The more popular episodes of this program have always been the niche topic.
Yeah.
And so I'm excited to see what this one does. Joining us for today's show, Pete Cardillo. He's a legal expert. He's our guest coach for the day. We're going to talk termites and wood issues.
That's right. Great to be here.
Well, thanks for coming. What we always do to open up the show, though, is we like to tap into our mailbox, be it through our email address, our phone bank, or our social media accounts. If you'd like to submit your issue or your question to the Condo Coaches, you can do so a number of ways. The most important way, the easiest way, where you're going to get the most information without even reaching us, is going to our website, thecondocoaches.com, thecondocoaches.com. You'll find a few ways that you can submit a form there, including our playbook section, and we'll get to the playbooks a little bit later on exactly what those are. There's 6 of them now, and you can get those absolutely free. We'll tell you about those in a bit, but thecondocoaches.com has forms, and you can submit your question that way, be it for the show or for one of the Condo Coaches. You can also call us, 813-331-5415, 813-331-5415, and that number goes to our Condo Coaches network. We also get that call from you. You leave us a message with the issue that you're dealing with or your question you might have, and we make sure to put you in touch with the Condo Coach that's best suited to help you with that issue. So we try to streamline this as much as possible, so the more information you give us, the quicker we can help you resolve it. And then, of course, our email address. Great way to get a hold of us, too, because, again, we can pass that on to the right coach. You email us, help@thecondocoaches.com, help@thecondocoaches.com. Again, that comes to our central email bank, and then we get that out to the Condo Coach that's going to be best suited to help you with your issue or your question. So, again, easy ways to get a hold of us. You can email us, call us 24/7. As always, we'd like to open up the show with the different emails and comments that we get. I'm going to go off our Facebook page here, and we got a message from Karen Velez. Karen's a frequent listener of the show. This is actually the second question we've answered for Karen. And she goes, she's asking, are plumbing issues inside of the wall of a condo the responsibility of the association, or does it depend on the individual community? We're about to renew our insurance, and Allstate says we're responsible from the drywall in. The condo president saying it's from the exterior of the building, including porches that are screened in or have glass enclosures. So we're getting into really some specifics here, and again, as we always say, we're not legal experts, and also, to take a look at your governing documents as a backup. But we've touched on this, I think in one of the very first episodes, we kind of touched on this issue in terms of legally, where does your unit begin and end?
Well, we just had this a week or two ago, too, from another board president, and the insurance company is absolutely right. This is not a legal question. This is just a fact.
Okay.
The condominium 718 law, if they ask their lawyer or whatever, says they own from the finish of the drywall in. So
into the unit.
The finish, they bring the drywall to the unit, and then the paint you have to put on. But everything behind that is a common element.
Okay, you're talking about the exterior drywall, though.
No.
Or the interior drywall.
The interior drywall.
Okay.
Yeah.
So everything from the interior drywall in is part of that unit.
For the owner.
Right.
From the drywall back out to the wall, or what he's saying,
to the exterior,
outside is part of the common element.
Okay. All right.
And they want to check with their attorney, but we've had attorneys on. That's not we're not giving legal advice. That's just kind of a fact.
Okay, so in this case, if there are plumbing issues, right, which falls in between those two walls, that falls on the association.
Correct.
Okay, great. Just want to make sure I clarify that. But again, check your governing documents, right? Because, who knows? I mean, there could be a curveball in there, and definitely have an attorney take a quick look at it, or an insurance adjuster, somebody that, again, maybe writing that policy, and have them take a look at those documents and make sure that that's the case.
One thing about these questions that I'm getting a lot of feedback with or for is people, when they submit these questions, are looking for their own information, right?
Yeah.
They don't have any idea with our network like it is how popular we're finding. But I get calls saying, "Thank you for asking this question. I had the same question."
That's right.
So the more questions we get, the better it is for the 9 million people across the state of Florida that are in this situation.
Well, we love it. It helps us make a better show for everyone because, again, we know the issues that are happening out there. To kind of pick the low-hanging fruit, we know that the Airbnb issue is a big thing down in South Florida. Everywhere else, not so much, but nonetheless, that's an issue that we watch closely because we know that our show, broadcasting in Miami, broadcasting across the Palm Beaches, that's an issue that's going to be very important to them.
Right. And then we've had this past week, we still get the financial side for loans. If the biggest one I get is finance. So if somebody wants finance, just send me your financial statements and we'll have our team review them and give you an independent business opinion back, not an accountant's opinion or whatever, an independent business decision back. And it's making huge differences for these associations, Johnny. And the other big common one we're finding now is they're changing management companies. So now we're finding, look, management companies are awesome, but you've got to write a set of specifications that are specific so the expectations are set on both behalves.
Well, it's like any relationship.
Right.
I mean, if you're just getting out of a bad relationship, you want to kind of look for the next relationship to have or not have the issues that you had in the previous relationship. And again, we're happy to obviously do an assessment of your community, so to find your needs and your wants and kind of find some middle ground there to get those accomplished. But the financial assessment by far has probably been the biggest impact that we've had as a program and as a network on these communities, because it's really opening their eyes to the true financial status of their community.
Well, we had an association last week sign the documents last Thursday for a major loan that they had been trying to get for 3.5 years and could never get it.
That's
and
incredible.
Then we came in and reformatted it because we have business consulting experts that know how to present for capital raises or money raises.
Yeah, they know how to toss out that bait.
Yeah. And the banks, they got multiple proposals from multiple banks and closed last Thursday night.
That's incredible. That's exciting.
They're pretty happy.
And that's incredibly transformative because that is going to be where they get that value for that community.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's going to instantly have a dramatic effect on the, and again, whether you intended it to be your investment or not, it is an investment in your investment.
Yeah.
And the value of that community is going to grow. People will live there longer. Because I would think if you've lived in a community, let's say 20 or 30 years, and things aren't starting to look so great, if all of a sudden there's this great renovation project that takes place, you're probably going to wait it out a little longer before you sell or decide to move to somewhere else.
Well, I can tell you this board reached us by accident, so to speak, for some other stuff. When we did the financial deep dive for them, like we offer everybody, and we said, where are you with this? And they go, man, we've got to get this, but we've been turned down for the last 3 years. And I go, why? And they said, well, whatever the reason was.
Sure.
I said, why don't you let the condo coaches put together a no-cost proposal, not a proposal for, but the proposal that you'll give a bank.
Yeah.
And we'll show you how to get the money. Well, we did. We did the cover pages, everything. It wasn't condo coaches. It was the association.
Sure.
We did the narrative. We did the financial reviews.
You're the ghostwriter for the community.
Oh, yeah. And they got the loan.
Well, and again, because we have bankers that are coaches in our network, and that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to again help you run your community effectively, efficiently, and on budget, as I say every single show. And that's a perfect example because that type of knowledge, that type of expertise, typically is incredibly expensive.
Oh,
and everybody in our network does this on a voluntary basis. You know, Pete's here as a volunteer. Nobody stroked you a check, right, Pete?
Nope, no check.
Not yet, right?
Not yet.
the termites take care of him.
Yeah, that's right. You know, and Dean's lunch. You know, it's
right.
but that's the extent of it. We all do it because we realize that these board members are all volunteers, and the residents obviously want to see their communities do well, and it makes us feel good to help people out there.
Sure, absolutely.
All right, well, we are going to be talking termites and wood issues with Pete Cardillo today. He's our guest coach, head coach, Dean Akers, with us as always. Again, if you want to be a part of the show, few ways you can do that. Our website, being the best way, we've got blog posts up there. We've got every episode. You can watch it right there on our website, thecondocoaches.com, thecondocoaches.com. You can also email us, help@thecondocoaches.com. help@thecondocoaches.com, where again every episode we talk about the email questions we get, we talk about the phone calls we get, and your question could absolutely be a part of our show if you reach out to us. And also give us a call sometime, 813-331-5415, 813-331-5415. Segment 2 of the Condo Coaches radio show coming up. I'll also tell you about these free playbooks, now 6 of them on our website, right after this.
Contact the Condo Coaches online at thecondocoaches.com. More of the Condo Coaches is coming up next.
Thanks, Julie. And coming up next, is there rain in your weekend forecast? We'll find...
Hey.
Hi.
It's been a while. Great place and nice neighborhood. You must have a strong community association board.
Thanks. I guess so, but I don't pay any attention to that stuff.
Seriously? How do you know for sure the board and community manager are making the right decisions to protect your investment?
I don't, but what am I supposed to do?
You can get involved and connect with CAI.
CA what?
CAI, Community Associations Institute, they're a nonprofit group that has helped us build a great community. They have free resources for your association board, professional training for community managers, and helpful information for homeowners.
Thanks. I'll definitely do that.
Is the time and investment you have made in your home and community protected? Be a smart homeowner and visit CAI at responsiblecommunities.com.
Welcome back to the Condo Coaches, online at thecondocoaches.com. Here's your host, Johnny Torres.
We're back. Thank you so much for listening. Again, the Condo Coaches here to run or help you run. We don't run anything. I don't even run my household. We're here to help you run your community association, homeowner association, condo association effectively, efficiently, and on budget. With me, as always, head coach Dean Akers, and our guest today, Pete Cardillo. He's a legal expert when it comes to dealing with termites and wood issues. And, you know, I mean, you don't stay busy at all here in Florida, I'm sure. I mean,
no, not at all. This part of Florida, especially Central Florida, and all of Florida is the termite capital of the world. It's basically ground zero for termite infestation, termite activity, and unfortunately termite damage to buildings.
Well, one of the things that again, we tend to forget are the things that we don't see on a daily basis, right? We had an expert a few shows back on our roads, right, and paving and things like that. Termites is another thing, again, like sinkholes, that until it's a major problem, you don't even realize that you have one.
That's right, and there are reasons for that. Termites primarily remain hidden. Mm-hmm. They live underground, and they come up into buildings from behind the walls, and then they do their evil deeds.
Yeah.
I.e., they eat your buildings from the inside. And you, as an owner, as a condo association, have no idea that you're under attack until, say, a renovation project or siding falls off a building.
Yeah.
And by then, significant damage has usually occurred.
Well, and I would think that unlike a single-family home, right, and we try to cover all, associations, but a single-family home, is a little bit different because the homeowner is more likely to notice an issue like that, beginning to take place. Whereas if you're living in a condominium, certainly depending on how that condominium is structured, you're not looking for those kind of things because you're assuming that somebody's taking care of it.
That's right. You're popping into your unit. There may or may not be a management company, but you're not the way a single family homeowner would look at.
Yeah, they're not cutting the grass.
They're not walking the property,
right?
Checking every inch of the side of the building, which is where you might see signs of infestation. And so that community, those communities, the associations and their unit owners are much more vulnerable to this type of attack.
Now, I want to get into obviously some of the things to look for. And you're not in the pest control business. You're a legal expert. You're an attorney that deals with these kind of issues when it comes to insurance claims. But just because I don't want to forget to ask this question later, since the boom, right, and then the recession, right, we had a lot of apartment complexes which are built entirely out of whatever OSB or whatever the
green board
right,
press board,
wood products, right,
exactly,
or some wood derivative. Now that those, since that conversion and again since that recession, are you seeing more condominiums, right, that were conversions previously having these type of issues, or just in general, do you see have you seen an increase in condominiums with termite issues?
Well, we've absolutely seen an increase with regard to conversions, properties that were apartment complexes that were converted to condos. And with those buildings, oftentimes, unfortunately, because they weren't originally constructed as condos, but apartment complexes, the construction might be a little shoddier. And that's an important aspect with regard to termite infestation. The better the construction, the more protected you are.
Well, and that's why I asked. I mean, I have a little bit of a builder background. I worked for a home builder for a number of years. And so I know that the way that apartment complexes are built and the way that a condominium is built is completely different.
You're right.
The building standards, not only by their choosing, but also, I believe, legally, are also very different.
That's right, and so they're going to only do typically the real estate company or the investors, whoever's constructing an apartment complex, is going to do it as cheaply as possible. Not so with constructing a condo building or complex, and so that with those conversions we're seeing, and we are getting more of those cases that are sort of post boom. There are more significant problems, without a doubt.
So let's get into some of those. What are some of the signs to look for?
Some of the signs to look for would include on the side of the building, but again, this requires a manager or somebody to actually be looking. Little mud tubes or tunnels that can appear at the bottom of the outside siding, assuming there's space or a gap between the siding.
Do they kind of look ground. A little bit like those like beehives, and is it that kind of like these mud tubes that you're talking about, or?
Well, no, they're elongated.
Okay.
They're thin tubes, and so the termites, they come up from the ground and enter the building through these tubes.
Okay.
But often enough, as you probably know from your experiences, the construction is such that the siding, whether it's stucco or lapboard siding, goes all the way to the grade, all the way to the ground. And so you don't have that gap where you might see it, and they go up behind it.
So it's more difficult to spot.
Much more difficult. Other signs might include wings, because they swarm when they're reproducing, and they will drop their wings, and you usually would require an expert to identify exactly what it is. But if you have an insect wing that might look like an ant wing, because they're very similar, that's another sign. Deteriorating, if it's stucco's the worst. Stucco over frame is like a termite heaven, termite steak.
Now, would you recommend, and I guess it's going to vary, but, would a landscaper know what to look for, or do you still just recommend that if they don't have a pest control company already as a vendor, that they hire one basically to come in and take a look at their community?
Absolutely. Without a doubt. They should have, especially if it's frame construction. Almost all of our cases are wood frame construction.
Right.
If it's a block building.
Which is why I asked, about the condo conversions, because, again, they're built as apartment complexes. Most apartment complexes are built in wood framing.
Exactly. And with those wood frame buildings, we recommend that you have protection through a termite company so that you have a bond or guarantee. And as part of their services, typically, to go back to your question and point about detection, they will do annual inspections and they're supposed to walk every inch of the property or the buildings anyhow to look for those signs. If it's a wood siding, sometimes rotten wood is the sign, decaying wood on the side, which of course was stuck.
Where you see it kind of crumbling.
Yeah, exactly.
Where you just touch it and it just kind of starts to fall apart.
Right. Or it could be wet and rotten.
Now, again, we talk pest control companies. Do most of them handle the termite issue? Do they, or is it one of those things where it'd be better to get, someone who focuses strictly on termite issues?
Most of them do handle the termite.
Okay.
There are a few that only do what they call general pest control. That's bugs in the unit,
in the lawn, or in the
lawn,
right?
But most of the big players do have a termite section or division, and they focus on termite. And so for our condo association clients, they have really two layers of protection that they should have in place.
Okay.
They without a doubt, they should have property insurance, and most of them do.
We've done a couple of episodes on that. Never touched on the termite issue, but still, the issue stands, of course, about having a good assessment of your community, the value, right? Getting it properly appraised, and then making sure that you're adequately covered for things like this.
Right. And under a typical what's called an all-risk policy, this type of damage would be covered. But you need the second layer, which is what I was just talking about, and that's a termite company that will give you a bond or promise to service the property, treat the property, protect the property, inspect the property, and if you get the right bond, pay for any damage that occurs, any termite damage.
Yeah, it's a bit of a secondary, kind of insurance policy, but on behalf of the termite company, saying that, hey, we did a good job. We're confident in the work we did, and if you do have any issues, we'll take care of it.
Stand by it. Right.
Sure. That's great, because I would think, again, not a lot of industries do that sort of thing.
No, they don't. No. Not that they're exactly willing all the time when the damage is discovered, and and that's where we come in. But if the protection is there, then they have recourse. They have a remedy. And unfortunately, many times the termite company will tell the owner, including condo associations, hey, because of this language in the contract, we don't really cover that. Good luck. And the insurance companies do the same thing and claim that this damage is not covered under your insurance policy.
Sure.
And so there are many, and we have a strong, fervent belief that there are so many associations that have these protections. Most of them really have that. I say that's what they need to do. Most of them are already doing it.
Yeah.
But what they don't know is that they really do provide protection and they have a remedy. But so often they're told by either the termite company or the insurance company, no, it's not covered. Good luck.
Well, and again, in the next segment, I'm definitely going to ask you a little bit about that vendor process. Obviously, maybe some of the loopholes you've seen or some of the issues you've seen when choosing certain vendors. But having that insurance policy reviewed would also be a good practice to make sure that you have coverage for an issue like this.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're talking with Pete Cardillo. He's our legal expert today in the issues of termites and wood issues. And, of course, in Florida, there's a major issue. So if you have a question that you'd like to ask, hit us up on our Facebook live stream, facebook.com/the Condo Coaches. That's facebook.com/the Condo Coaches. While you're at it, hit us up on Instagram, too. People love our Instagram account. Yeah, instagram.com/the Condo Coaches. Segment 3 of the radio show coming up after this.
Contact the Condo Coaches online at thecondocoaches.com. More of the Condo Coaches is coming up next.
It only takes a minute to find out if you may have prediabetes, and you can do it at doihaveprediabetes.org. But you're probably not going to. Nope. I'm sure you've got a perfectly good excuse. Kids, work. I get it. You're busy. So what better time than now? Let's begin. Raise one finger if you're a man. Ladies, none yet. Oh, count in your head if you're driving. Now, 3 more fingers for everyone over 60, 2 over 50, 1 over 40, 1 more if you're not physically active, another finger if anyone in your family has type 2 diabetes, another if you've got high blood pressure. If you're overweight, raise another finger, 2 if you're very overweight, and 3 if you're really overweight. You've just taken the world's first audio prediabetes test. And if you're holding up 5 or more fingers, visit doihaveprediabetes.org or talk to your doctor. There's no excuse because prediabetes can be reversed.
Brought to you by the Ad Council and its pre-diabetes awareness partners.
Welcome back to the Condo Coaches, online at thecondocoaches.com. Here's your host, Johnny Torres.
Thanks again for listening. You can catch every episode, all 31 of them. Today will be number 32, but you can catch them all on our podcast as well. iTunes, SoundCloud, Overcast, Stitcher. I mean, you name it. Our podcast is out there. Just make sure you search your podcast service for the Condo Coaches. And if we don't have it on there for some reason, just shoot us an email and we'll make sure to get it up there. But, you know, Dean, you and I have actually been talking about this quite a bit recently about our national audience that we have with our podcast episode. Very popular out west in Portland, Seattle. You know, we've got a lot of great listeners out there. Thank you for those of you who are downloading and subscribing to our podcast. That's the important thing. Subscribe to it. Even if you don't listen to every episode, at least you're making sure that you're getting every episode. Same with our YouTube channel. Every episode is up there. You can watch all of them, make it a marathon, or binge watch it as they call it now. And you can do that at youtube.com/the Condo Coaches. And I've been enjoying doing that through my Apple TV, which is nice because, again, you can run either the podcast through your Apple TV or you can run it off the YouTube application that they have there on the Apple TV as well. So that's kind of fun too.
I had a lady that were helping their board. They actually had a conference call with me this week on some issues they had. So I asked her, I said, how'd you hear about it? She goes, well, I listened to your episodes. And I said, oh, great, thanks. She goes, yeah, I have family in Tampa. I live in Broward County, and I come up about every 2 or 3 weeks, and I listen to your podcast on the whole drive up.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, you know, that's about a 4-hour trip. So that's about 4 episodes of the Condo Coaches. So that's great. Well, thank you to her for listening and downloading the podcast. You know, I use it on my commute, you know, just to make sure that we're putting on a good show and that it sounds good. And so typically I'll listen to it again, you know, on my commute as well. And the podcasting thing is kind of going through a bit of a resurgence again, you know, as again, people are looking for entertainment and different things to listen to while they're commuting. And so we appreciate those, not only who listen through the great radio stations that carry the show on the weekends, but also, you know, at any time, 24/7, they can pick up their phone or any other mobile device and listen to the show or watch the show from just about anywhere.
Well, you know what's crazy, and Pete's an example coming on today, is you mentioned niche. So Pete's on talking about termites.
Yeah.
We could go up and down the highway our lifetime and say, how would termites be relevant? Pete knows they're really relevant. People that are affected by it know it's really relevant. What happens now is as you mentioned, our shows that are bringing these relevant topics that are not the major topics are having more listenership, more shares, more everything.
That's right.
Because we just know that they're out there, and now we're providing a resource for them to be able to reach out and solve their problems.
And the more you think about it, the more it makes sense, right? Because these are the issues that the people tend to forget about. So they're the ones that are less frequently discussed and brought up, and also the ones that people are less knowledgeable about. We can talk about collecting association fees and this and that, but, some associations already do that well. Some others don't. And so that's going to be kind of hit and miss. But when we're talking about roads, or when we're talking about termites, or when we're talking about disaster policies and things like that, again, those are things that, is out of the knowledge base for most people.
Right.
And again, I think that's one of the great things about the show is that we're able to dive deep into an issue like this and have on an expert like Pete.
The termite lawyer.
That's right. So again, we're here with Pete Cardillo, our termite lawyer and guest coach for today's show. One of the things that we talk about whenever we bring on an expert like yourself is talking a bit about the vendor process, because vetting the vendor, while sometimes the property management company does it, sometimes the board does it, and obviously you're not that vendor, right? You're not in the pest control business, but what are some of the things that people should be looking for? What have you seen from some of the better companies out there that do this type of work that the questions should be asked, or the qualities of that particular vendor that you should be looking for?
Sure. With regard to termite companies, there is a huge difference in two major products that are offered by most companies.
Okay.
And that is a contract, a long-term contract that provides for service and treatment, but not for repair of damage. And you might think, well, why the heck do I have an agreement to begin with if they don't cover damage?
Sure.
But these agreements purport to not cover damage at all. The other product, which is much better and typically not much more expensive, contains what's called a repair bond. That's what they call it in the industry. And that's where they do promise to repair any termite damage that's found during their period of coverage. So that's the very first most important thing to make sure of.
Well, I'm a big believer in you get what you pay for.
Right.
And in this case, I would say, especially with something as valuable as your home or your investment property, in some cases, again, you don't want to leave that to risk, of having damage from something like termites.
Exactly.
Because it's incredibly costly. I mean, we're talking about the foundation of the home.
Yeah, I mean, typically millions of dollars in any condo of any size to do the repair work.
Sure.
Because the framing in the entire building is eaten out.
Right, it's completely compromised.
Right, and that's very expensive. You have to remove the siding and then reframe it, essentially. So that's the very first thing to make sure of, is you have that repair bond or repair guarantee. There are different ways of saying it, but if your listeners remember the word repair, that's the most important thing.
Well, and Pete, you being the termite lawyer, I mean, where have you seen this kind of go wrong for some communities out there? What are the common reasons of why someone like yourself has to get involved?
Well, typically we get involved where perhaps they don't have that repair bond, but they have a significant amount of damage, and we can still help those associations. It's just much more of a challenge. So we are in those situations where they didn't get the right product on the front end.
Because then some investigation has to take place into who did what and how often and that sort of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The other thing we see at times is condos that let those agreements lapse. They're like insurance policies in that they have annual renewal payments.
Right.
And then they can go indefinitely. And the longer the period of coverage, the better for the association. But what we see sometimes is if there's a lack of organization or indecision within the organization, whether it's a property manager or whatever, they allow it to lapse.
Either a turnover in the board or a turnover in the property management company.
Right.
Might kind of leave those gaps, right? Some of the pieces that fall through the cracks.
You get gaps, no pun. And you get gaps in coverage, and then maybe they get another termite company, and so you might have multiple termite companies. They're pointing the finger at each other. So we see that situation. So with longevity is another important aspect, to have a good plan to begin with, and then to stick with it, so that particular company is on the hook, so to speak, for the entire period of time.
Now, Dean, any issue there? Because I know sometimes this happens with, signing an indefinite, let's say, contract with a vendor like this in regards to like future boards, right? And I mean, I know some organizations have clauses where you can't sign an agreement beyond the amount of time that you're going to be in that role, or for the term of that board. Do you find, are there ever any issues like that where, sometimes they'll question the validity of the agreement because it wasn't signed by the current board but by a previous board?
No, that's not really an issue because no matter who the board member is acting with authority, they had authority to bind the association then, and it doesn't matter if the board has changed 10 or 15 years later, and as long as they've been making their annual payments, they still have that same protection.
Okay.
It probably is not a bad idea from a coaching standpoint. In some of these programs, like we have management company programs, where we put in the resolutions that a board will re-acknowledge it every year.
So there's no downside to that.
No, there's no downside.
Yeah, and I guess that's kind of what I was getting at, just to make sure that, at least the board, there's something in there triggering that, hey, make sure that this is up to date, make sure the company still comes around, make sure they still exist. I mean, things like that, just to make sure that, something like this doesn't fall through the cracks.
Well, I think boards, and we're in the process of putting together now, but you've got termites, you've got other subtle things that they may have contracts with. They have escalators. We have one recently that came in there wanting to fire their management board, and management company, they've been on a contract now for 15 years and had automatic escalators in it. And so, and you had a 60-day notification to terminate or change the escalator, and it just keeps churning. So now we're getting boards to make resolutions that when they sign a management agreement, part of the resolution of the signature is that the management company is responsible to notify them 30 days before the 60 days that they need to re-acknowledge. So when we put it in as a resolution as a voted on proposition, guess what the management company has to do? They have to notify them, or their 60-day deal is null and void. And it's those subtle things like that. No, it's very subtle.
Yeah, it's great.
This particular association had never thought of this, and now they're paying way more. Now they've got to terminate them. And the guys go, well, you signed a contract. So now they're going to terminate them. They're going to get another one. Then 10 years from now or whatever, they're going to be in the same boat. Not with what we just shared with them to do.
Because, again, it just brings it back up, for everybody, just to make sure that everyone's on the same page.
5 years from now, the board... 5 years from now, if you have the same management company, 30 days or whatever the deal is before their automatic renewal, the management company has to come to the current board and say, you have a 30 days before the automatic renewal kicks in. It's their responsibility. We flipped it back on them.
Yeah.
And so once they miss one of them, I'm not a lawyer, but I'm a business guy. They're a dead duck.
That's right. Well, and Pete, again, big issue. Now, and always has been really here in the state of Florida. But there's, I would say, I don't know, I would say within the last 10, 15 years, there's been a little bit more awareness, it seems like, about this as an issue. Do you find that to be the case?
Yeah, when I've been a trial lawyer for 35 years. I've been doing this kind of work for over 20 years, believe it or not, only this kind of work. And so when we started this, the most property owners had no idea about termites. We, as you know, we have so many people who come from up north.
Right.
It's a way of life here, but it's foreign to them. But over that period of time, you're right. We've seen where the consumers are much more educated.
Yeah.
On what termites can do, which is a good thing. And boards are more aware of it.
Okay.
They may not know the intricacies, but they know that, hey, this is something we need to watch out for.
All right. Well, segment 4 with Pete Cardillo, termite wood issues. That's what we're talking about today in the Condo Coaches. Our final segment coming up with head coach Dean Akers. It's Condo Coaches radio show. We'll be back after this.
Contact the Condo Coaches online at thecondocoaches.com. More of the Condo Coaches is coming up next.
Attention men under the age of 35. You know what really impresses the ladies? When a guy has a few drinks and later gets pulled over for buzz driving. That could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. There goes let's grab dinner and a movie. Oh, I know. You drive more carefully when you're buzzed. You've proven that hundreds of times. A woman admires that kind of confidence. And you've practiced how to speak if a cop does pull you over. Slowly, clearly, and politely like, "Good evening, officer." A woman admires that kind of foresight. And what woman doesn't find it adorable that you call it buzzed even though the law calls it drunk? You could kiss $10,000 goodbye, along with any chance of having a girlfriend. Because nothing says, "I'm a catch," more than a guy who lives in his parents' basement and calls it my place.
Buzzed, busted, and broke. Because buzz driving is drunk driving. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to the Condo Coaches, online at thecondocoaches.com. Here's your host, Johnny Torres.
Hey, it's the final segment, but that doesn't mean that you have to stop listening to the Condo Coaches. Again, you can find us online 24/7 at our website, thecondocoaches.com, or Facebook or YouTube. Just search for the Condo Coaches. All of our videos are there, every episode. And again, earlier we talked about the podcast version, so find it on your favorite podcast service. But the Condo Coaches are everywhere because this is information that we love to put in the hands of not only board members, but also the residents of the community, because again, we talk about communication all the time, and when both sides are equally informed and knowledgeable, I think that makes for a better community overall. So again, the Condo Coaches radio show, here to help you run your community effectively, efficiently, and on budget. One of the other things that we developed, which has also been a huge success for us, have been these playbooks. And what you need to do is you got to go to thecondocoaches.com/playbook. That's thecondocoaches.com/playbook. And I'm going to hold them up here for our live stream in our videos. But we've got these 4 beautiful booklets. There are 2 more being run off right now. We are printing hundreds of copies of. And those 2 booklets are already on our website. So if you go to thecondocoaches.com/playbook, thecondocoaches.com/playbook, you fill out the form just to let us know that you're an actual human being. And then what happens is as soon as you hit submit, the documents are right there ready for you to download, all 6 of them. You can download in an easy to read, easy to download PDF format that then you can email to anybody you want, your board members or fellow residents, or post them if you got a Facebook group. You know, it's another great way that you can share the information. And then if you want a hard copy, which we get requests for hard copies all the time because not everybody likes reading in depth on their computer or mobile device, we can mail you the hard copies. Dean will be more than happy to do so. You send us an email to help@thecondocoaches.com, help@thecondocoaches.com, and we'll send you just let us know how many copies you need and where those need to go to. Now, these playbooks, again, there's 6 of them. The first 4 that I have here in front of me, one of them, the first one is, here are the 10 most important things you need to know if you're an HOA or COA board member. Understanding your community's finances, and again, this is probably the biggest one, you know, in terms of the issues that we hear most frequently about, financial issues when it comes to your community. Collecting delinquent association fees, which pairs very nicely with the again, the financial issues of your community. So collecting delinquent association fees also very key because it's never a fun thing to do, but it is a very necessary thing to do.
We had some questions from some users or some listeners or viewers that I reached out to some of our coaches on. It's a very interesting question. We're going to bring a coach on here in the next month or so.
Okay.
It had to do with condo delinquencies, but not just how to collect them where you can the board can take ownership of the unit or whatever, but it had to do with the next segment that nobody does. And there's some really interesting things happening on the front there of being able to go after them for a perfected judgment once they've defaulted. 99% of the time, in fact, I'd almost go out on a limb and say 100% of the time after the event has happened, the individual condo owner goes off into the sunset and the judgment's never perfected against them. It's only on the unit.
Right.
And it doesn't even show up in their credit.
Wow. Okay.
So that we're going to have an expert on for that because it seems to be getting more traction to understand. But it's a whole different business.
Wow. Okay. All right. Well, that's definitely a preview for a future episode. And then the ABCs of holding elections. Again, these are it's kind of a year-round thing because everybody holds their elections at different times. But the ABCs of holding elections, again, those are typically very contentious meetings, unfortunately. But this will hopefully smooth some of those logistics out as to how to run an effective board meeting when it comes to the elections for the board members. And then the two new ones that I can't show you if you're watching on our live stream, but I do have here in front of me on my computer, is the 5 most common mistakes board directors make. And again, this is just, learning from experience. We're talking from experience, and we put these together based on, the people that we talk to and the different situations that we come across when working with all the different boards that are out there. And then kind of the opposite side of that, best practices for planning and executing successful association meetings.
Yep.
And so those kind of go hand in hand. And so those are the 6 booklets you can download now at thecondocoaches.com/playbook, absolutely free. There's no cost for these. We won't even charge them to mail them to you.
Yeah, no, we've been sending them in the mail.
Right. We'll mail you these hard copies at no cost. You just let us know how many you need, and we'll get those in the mail to you.
And, Johnny, we've had management companies reaching out lately, and we are sending boxes to them for all their community area managers to be able to hand out to their boards. So if there's a management company out there that would like this kind of information, they don't have to PDF it and print it. Just reach out to us, and we'll send a case of them to them so they can hand it to all their managers.
That's right. I mean, we love the property management companies. We know a lot of them listen. I want to give a little shout out to Megan, who's a property manager. She is very active on our group and on our Facebook page, and I know she listens to the show. And again, that's a great idea, and kudos to those property management companies that are out there giving out this information, because again, it doesn't change.
Right.
And it's absolutely free. We've done all the work. I mean, we've put it into a booklet. All they've got to do is hand it off to the boards they're working with, or email them to the boards they're working with.
Yeah.
And I think it just overall sets the right tone for you working with that board going forward. With us today, again, Pete Cardillo, talking about a not so fun subject, because again, if you're dealing with termite issues, that's not a good place to be.
Not a good day if you're talking about
right. Yeah. Hopefully.
Yeah. You don't want to talk to Pete. Now, Pete likes you to talk.
Sure.
I want to interrupt.
Yeah.
One of the things Pete and I talked about at lunch, which I thought was very, very spot on, but it was just conversational, is it's not what Pete does or people in Pete's role do. It's the lack of knowledge out there that causes people to miss the situation that will allow them to have successful outcomes on this. So Pete has tons of work.
Yeah.
But he's really here as an advocate to make sure that you're doing the right things for your association.
Well, absolutely. I mean, especially in these financially challenging times, it just pains me to know that so many associations do not realize that they have recourse or a remedy where there can be assistance in bearing the financial burden of significant repairs. I mean, you know how that goes, and having to assess that. And so,
well, and better to pay it up front, in a preventative way than to severely pay for it later on when you have a termite issue. And really, that's why we do this show, because we know that we're saving these associations thousands, if not millions of dollars when it comes to any number of things that we've talked about on this show. But certainly with a topic like termites, where again, this could be a severe issue that could essentially bankrupt a community.
It could. It can be catastrophic. I mean, there are unfortunate situations where the building department condemns the property.
Wow.
It's so bad.
Yeah.
And then the building has to be vacated.
Well, and I brought up the condo conversion issue because, again, I having been in the business around that time, I realized how many properties were converting, and I doubt that maybe some diligence was done in terms of making sure that the proper standards were in place during that conversion to avoid these issues as they were reselling these properties from apartments to condominiums.
Yeah, I'm cynical about that. I'll be honest with you, Johnny. I don't think there was or would be in those situations.
There's certainly no regulations, right?
Right.
Like they weren't legally bound to make sure that there was these kind of measures in place.
Right. And you had converters who came in and took ownership of the properties. It wasn't necessarily the prior owner, longtime owner, investor, contractor, whoever owned the buildings, the converters would come in, take temporary ownership, and convert it, and then turn it over to the association.
Do you find that older properties are more affected by this than newer properties, or is it kind of non-discriminatory in that way where it can pretty much happen to any community?
It could happen to any community, but there is kind of a rough timing issue. Really before the 70s, say, even if it was wood frame construction, even very old wood buildings, they're not as vulnerable, believe it or not.
Right.
Huh.
And I see some heads nodding.
Yeah.
It's really post 70s and on into 8 or 10 years ago, because that's how long it takes them to do their damage, where we see more significant problems than in the very old, even if they're wood frame buildings. I live in a house that's over 100 years old, and I'm not worried about. We have termites, but they're not going to eat the building.
They can't.
You know what?
The wood is too hard.
Right. Oh, okay.
That's. I don't want to go too deep into the
sure,
science,
right.
but they didn't dry it out back in the day with they were just. I mean, my house was the same way. We were 2x4s, real 2x4, and you couldn't drill it with a drill.
No, the bit would break.
Right.
Wow. Well, Pete, I just want to say thank you so much for being on the show. You're a great guest. If there's anyone out there with termite issues, reach out to us at thecondocoaches.com. We'll get that passed on to Pete. Thank you so much. As always, Dean Akers.
Thank you, Johnny.
All right, we'll catch you on the next show. Thank you for listening to the Condo Coaches.
You've been listening to the Condo Coaches, brought to you by lmfunding.com. Find us online at thecondocoaches.com and join us this same time next week as we help you navigate life in your managed community.